You cannot invent and pioneer if you cannot accept failure.
We wanted people that were insanely great at what they did.
Nobody was making any money at all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's your boy C-Rock here in That One Studio on the What Are You Made Of show. I got another great guest for you to share what they're made of, to inspire you, to remind you that you're unstoppable, to live in the life of your dreams. Jim Huffman's in the building with us today. Well, his building. Founder of GrowthHit, a growth marketing consultancy that's generated over $250 million in sales for clients. CEO of Neat Apparel. They make sweat-proof shirts. He's the podcast host of If I Was Starting Today. Author of the Amazon bestseller, The Growth Marketer's Playbook. And it's a book that pushed Seth Godin off the #1 spot for 72 hours. By the way, I've heard of Seth. I just don't know how to pronounce his last name, Jim.
It's one of those you read it, but you never say it, right?
Yeah, how do you pronounce that?
No, you nailed it. Seth Godin.
Godin. Okay. Yeah, Seth Godin. Some of you heard him. But yeah, great job with all the success that you've had and all that. But we really want to dive into what went into it and, you know, the ups and the downs and all that. So Jim, you know, first of all, we start the show off with the famous question. What are you made of?
I love these big open-ended questions that make you really think. And so I was thinking of that coming into it. And I think it's, you know, made up of a million little mistakes that could hurt in the short term, but in the long term, make you what you are, right? Because if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't try and fail, it's like you're just going to be stuck in your room, right? Doing nothing. So I think it's made up of a million little mistakes and being okay with it.
Yeah. And does this go for not just business, but personal as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially as like a father of 2 girls, 4 and 6. I mean, how much time do you have to talk about the mistakes that I'm making?
Yeah, you know, it's funny as kids and stuff and teenagers, we watch our parents and we have problems with our parents and all this stuff. And then we become parents and we're like, you know, kids are back talking to us. I don't know if your kids are back talking to you yet, but mine, you know, I have a 17, 11-year-old. And sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not going to hit my kids. I'm not going to yell at them and curse them out or anything. But so what am I supposed to do? I just throw in the towel. I'm like, whatever, do your thing then.
I know you can't ever tell your kid like, hey, just so you know, this is my first time doing this. Can I get a break? You know, I'm figuring this out too.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to try to use that one. Hey, can you be easy on me? I'd say I'm a rookie here. So Jim, where did it all start for you? Where did you come from prior to getting into marketing and all the stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah, I started my career in finance because I was told that's what you're supposed to do. It's like, oh, go get into investment banking or management consulting because that's the right path. And you know, when you're going through school, you're kind of clueless. You don't know your options and what jobs really exist. Like I thought there was 3 jobs. So I was like, let me try and get one of those. And then I quickly realized the reality of doing that wasn't what I wanted at all. You're like, wait a minute. Like, I don't necessarily want to look at spreadsheets all day and work for somebody else. And then much like a lot of people, you start reading things or looking at other paths, and I got my hands on a book like The 4-Hour Workweek, and it just like the right book at the right time can be magical just to make you think differently. And I didn't necessarily take immediate action to do something, but the wheels start turning. You're like, there's a different path and there's another like road I can go down. And that started to lead down this path of startups and entrepreneurship. But I think in the early days, as you don't know what to do, I'm a little bit of a follower and an order taker. And then there comes a point where it's like, okay, let me go down this other path that I think is more suited for myself and my skills.
Yeah. And yeah, in startup world and entrepreneurship, do you ever feel like you're banging your head against the wall? And you're like, why do I keep doing this? And then you'll get some success and you're like, oh, I realize now. And then you're banging your head against the wall again. And then it's just wild. It's one of the most wild experiences that anybody can go through. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. And you know what? We've recently implemented EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, and they have this thing called the issues list where you spend a lot of time in a meeting where you're like, hey, everybody write down your issues. 1 time a week, we're going to talk about it. And we've decided like, hey, we want to be that company that like squashes issues. And the reason why I bring this up, I was talking with another founder friend about a business problem that I had. And he goes, Jim, you've had this same problem for 3 years. Like, when are you going to do something about it and fix it? And it made me reflect to your point of like hitting your head up against the wall. It's like, I need to be more intentional about like the problems I want to solve and what I want to be good at. And I don't know, that is entrepreneurship. It's just like, what problem do you want to solve today? And can you be really good and black belt at solving those problems and moving on to the next one?
Yeah, yeah, and then learning from it, teaching others, that ingrains it deeper into you, which seems like you took upon yourself to start teaching others and sharing information. I mean, I guess in marketing, what led you to start wanting to write books or teach other people about it and share your knowledge with it versus just using it in your own companies?
Yeah, I was living in New York at the time, working at some startups, and I wanted some side money, and I always like thought I liked the idea of teaching. And so I reached out to this place, General Assembly. I was like, hey, I'd love to be, the digital marketing guy that teaches. And by the way, they ignored my email until I found someone who worked there that I knew that taught a coding class. I was like, would you connect me with that person? It's like, I think I could be helpful. And so I started teaching. And the best way to learn is absolutely to teach. It is a forcing function. We have to stand up in front of 2 people or 50 people, and they look at you as a thought leader. You're like, oh man, I better know my stuff. But as I did that, I started to get some clients from it, and I started to have all this material. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting on like 500 slides. I'm like, you know what? I should do something with this. I'm a huge fan of the idea of people that monetize their byproduct, right? Like the lumberyard monetizes sawdust from like breaking down wood. It's like, what's your byproduct? And for me, it was like all of this content. It's like, hey, can I repurpose it as an e-product or a book? And that was accidentally a smart thing to do, where it started to lead to businesses for what would become my agency. That wasn't the long-term vision. I was just like, I should not let these slides die in my Google Drive. It's like, I should do something with it. But I really enjoy that. I think I want to be a good learner, but to be a good learner, you need to be a good teacher.
Yeah, yeah. And what was your first run-in with marketing?
I was at a startup. I went from finance. I was working in an investment bank to this startup called Urban Daddy at New York at the time. And I was tasked with launching their kind of Dallas product, which was essentially an email newsletter. And they're like, all right, we need to get this to 100,000 people in, under 6 months. And you have to have the top content in the city. Good luck. And I'm like, do you need a model? You need a spreadsheet? Because that's all I know how to do. But I just had to like figure it out, right? And I learned quite quickly, it's all about making a great product and then finding that right referral mechanism to go viral where people will share it with others is huge. And so that went well. I was able to do fairly well in Dallas, then go up to New York and really just be tasked with a lot of other random marketing things. And what was fun is, I think there's this quote like, first time founders focus on the product, second time founders focus on distribution and marketing. And getting exposure to growing a startup, being able to work with, a CEO, that just kind of opened my eyes at the importance that this can have. And that led to another startup where I was the one lone non-technical person, which means you're a marketer and having to grow that. And a lot of times it's kind of being in over your skis and just trying to figure it out on the go and just test and learn a lot of different things. But yeah.
Yeah. And so what's your process generally when you're trying to figure something out? Is it to run ads and test ads and different messaging? Is that the process pretty much, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. But usually I start with a very simple thing. I'm like, what is blocking growth? And there's usually like one of 3 things, right? So one is you have a traffic problem. 2, you have a conversion problem. Or 3, and it's usually this one, you have a positioning problem where people think they have the best thing in the world. They talk about their features, and it turns out the market doesn't care. Guess what? They are looking at you as a commodity. So honing in on your positioning, usually by niching down. And 2, kind of going Alex Hormozy style, do you have an irresistible offer that will get people in the busy world of like being on mobile and having a million other options. Can you get them to activate? Because it's the companies that do that really well, they go down a really exciting path. So it's very much the fundamentals, but it's easy to like bypass that and want to focus on the tactics. So once we can dial in the positioning, it's like, okay, do we have a traffic or conversion problem? And based on that, we're focusing on ads or non-paid traffic. And then if it's a conversion problem, it's about optimizing their website with A/B testing and a lot of different things.
And do you work with a lot of people that sales happen on a website versus speaking with someone and someone closing them?
Yeah, good question. It's kind of half and half. Half of our clients are e-commerce on Shopify. They're selling. We've got people selling jammies for pit bulls. We have them selling jewelry. We have them selling ballistic helmets. But then to your point, we have other B2B companies where it's a lot of lead generation, and then we're funneling them to a sales team. What we get excited about is, can we have an impact on the business because we can drive high volume of traffic and high conversion events, whether that conversion event is a lead or a demo for like a software company, or it's a Shopify transaction to buy some pants.
Yeah. And Jim, in the process of your specialty and your expertise, how important is it to nurture someone as a lead before they actually get on a sales call? And then what's it? Is it better to do that through automation? Is it, how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because here's where people can go wrong when you have the marketing to sales handoff, right? Marketing's pointing to sales like, hey, we gave you all these leads. What's up? Let's close it. And sales is like, the leads are trash. Please get us good leads. And so there's this finger pointing game. And so when you can kind of have them not be on opposite ends of the table and be together looking at the problem, how do we solve it? Then we do that. So usually to solve that, it's very not simple, but we look at it two ways. One, who are the top prospects you close and what do they have in common? And then we look at the people that didn't close, the bad leads, what do they have in common? So for example, we had one client where we had that issue. And what we found was the sales calls went phenomenally well when they viewed the company as a thought leader. And that meant they got e-products in front of them. They watched the keynote of the CEO speak. So we're able to, as we're like driving leads, we have in the funnel some of those videos that they could see, but we definitely want to get the lead. But before they would get on the sales call, we would do an email drip sequence where it's like, hey, before you get on the call, here's our process, or hey, 10 things to think about before you buy this service. And you can track using various technologies if they're clicking that and downloading that. We're obviously doing retargeting. But those are some things that we think through. But depending on the business, it's like email, it's SMS, or it's like retargeting ads. But it very much depends on, are you selling like enterprise products, or is it like stuff to SMBs where maybe it's a shorter close time?
Yeah. No, I love that, and also preparing, pre-qualifying. A lot of times you'll hear the salespeople are like, well, these weren't qualified, and so, qualifying. Now AI is being integrated. Are you up to speed on AI and getting involved with AI integration for qualifying or sales calls even, or I should say appointment setting, really, because I guess they're not doing sales calls. Maybe they are. What's the deal with AI?
We're trying. I don't know about you, but like every week it's like, oh, wow, there's 50 new tools we need to check out.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some of the stuff that we are doing. We're testing Apollo AI. Apollo has been a great thing if you want to build a list. They have some AI features to help you there. Clearbit has some tools where you can see who's going to your website. They're launching some AI stuff. Zapier AI, we're doing a test with them where we can get our data talking to each other. So it sets up a sales team a little bit better. I'll tell you what tool's been awesome for our kind of marketing and sales process is Read AI. If you're looking to scale a sales team, it's basically an AI transcript tool, but it gives you a really nice summary, helps you see the sentiment, and it's really good when you want to dive in and be like, hey, what did we talk about last time? But we're testing a lot of different things, but it's hard to keep up, to be honest, to figure out, oh, what's working versus, oh, wow, let's change our workflow and do it around this new AI tool.
Yeah. I mean, what do you foresee like with this? Like, do you think eventually it'll slow down a little bit so that you can start picking things to change your process? Because I waited for the longest time to integrate AI because I was just like, there's so much coming out. Somebody's trying to charge 10,000. Somebody's trying to charge 5,000 for setup and monthly fee. Like I don't know. I don't want to invest in something until I know we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. Like, I know it's not going to ever be done, but it's like, you know, it was fire hose.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you foresee happening with this?
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of the big companies that are stable that launch AA tools I'm a little interested in because I think there's more longevity. Because I do see some people doing these quick launches of products that are cool, but I'm like, as I get under the hood, they're a little janky, and I know they don't have the runway to really pull it off. So I'm down to test those if it's more of an impulse purchase. But if it's a higher price tag, I'm a little bit more hesitant. But I even told my team, I'm like, you don't have to get the absolute best thing. Just get the thing that works, because it's real intimidating to be like, okay, this one's good, but what about the other 17 that do something similar? So I'm like, remove the pressure. It's all about, is it making you faster or is it making our job cheaper?
Yeah. And how is with marketing and running ads and all that, how's that changed with AI?
Oh man.
Like, have you integrated AI with that, and how's that really affected things?
Oh.
And by the way, do you even need to run ads in some cases, or can you just use DM marketing or organics work better? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
We still see the best thing for scaling, especially more in the short term than the long term, is paid ads. It's definitely like Meta, Instagram, Google, if you want to have great ROI. And the things that we're testing, it's like we've been using Copy AI and Chat GPT just to help with copywriting. Where I get excited is some tools where I can input data from customers to use that to write copy. That's been really helpful because it's super customer centric. On the creative side, we're actually testing it right now. I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest, where you can kind of create these avatars of people to talk about your product. We usually use other user-generated platforms like Join Brands, where we can have people do demos of our clients' products, but or even the product that we acquired. But there's tools where you can have avatars do that, where I'm looking at a video right now to see if we test it. So that's interesting. And like Canva's AI tool is kind of interesting to if you want to just make 50 ads all of a sudden, but it's also like quantity versus quality. So those are some things that we're testing. We're like, wow, this could save us time and money. But at the end of the day, it's like, is it going to work or not?
Yeah. You know, Genius AI is another one I used. It's $100 a month, not hardly anything. I upload all the copy from our landing pages, all of our marketing copy into it. It answers some questions through a questionnaire. And then it's not like ChatGPT where it forgets about you. It just continuously learns about you, learns your personality. And then you can use it for all kinds of different things. So I'm having a lot of success with that one if you want to check it out. And it actually creates. Yeah, go ahead.
I have not seen this one. This is super impressive. I'm kind of going through the demo page.
Yeah, so we've been using that one, and it actually creates pictures for you if you want to, social posts, email. It does pretty much all that stuff, but it continuously learns about you, and you can always update it and change it and evolve as a company through it, which is like, you know, the best. This is the best one I've seen so far. So
that's very cool.
Jim, I want to ask you about after you have a sales call with someone, right? People don't talk about this enough. Obviously, people talk about follow-up, and it's all in the follow-up, but people don't talk enough about marketing post-sales call, right? Like marketing post-sales call, it makes your follow-up creative, and you use psychology in that as well. Do you guys get involved with the marketing post-sales call?
I really am glad you brought this up, because it's one of the things, because most of the time, if you have a sales team, it means you have a high price point product where it's a very considered purchase. It's potentially a competitive deal. So how do you stand out? So what we like to do is we've realized if we can be viewed as thought leaders or decision makers and knowing their category, they're going to trust us. So usually we're doing like a few different things. I want to get them on our email newsletter where we build in public with another brand. Because if my sales call, I can have them being like, hey, that company acquired, that's so cool. You did that test and learned that. Then I know we have a point of differentiation. So we'll do like retargeting. We're trying to get them on our email newsletter. We will follow everybody on LinkedIn so they followed us back so they can see the thought leadership stuff we're putting out there, because that's the only way we can compete. Because you could make the argument we're a commodity. There's a bazillion agencies out there. How do you stand out? So that's something that we try and lean into.
Yeah, that's something that we do is it's all centered around my journey and going on 1,000 podcasts. And I share my story with this, and it's different because all the other ones are out there are just very generic and commoditized, like you said. And I got out of the mortgage business, Jim, about a year ago after 20 years in the mortgage real estate business and building a large organization, because I could not differentiate enough for myself, my own liking. It was a commodity, lowest rates, whoever's paying off the realtors under the table illegally better and all this other stuff. And I was done. So I definitely wasn't going to create my next company as one that could be commoditized. So I'm down with you on that 100%.
And your brand could be the best moat, right? Like that's the things that, like, if you nerd out on Warren Buffett, it's like, what is your moat? And brand's a powerful moat. Like Coca-Cola, See's Candy, like it's huge. And like your personal brand, people don't realize how much that can scale.
Yeah. Well, and also, you know, like having your personal brand, like C-Rock behind it being a face, but then having a brand like that one that could be placed not just on that agency, but many different industries as well, can carry through as well. And you know, my whole thing, Jim, and I'd love to hear your take on this. When I start a company, you're talking about like the byproduct of different things and how can you make a business out of that. I look at like alignment of it too, not just byproduct. Like if I'm doing podcast booking, how can I help people once they get on that show and people are coming to them and reaching out? How can I get them to help them automate the process of turning those into customers or fans or whatever? How can I help them grow their Instagram accounts effectively and strategically? You know, things that align with being a podcast guest. And then I start a business around things that are working for us. So, you know, I love the idea that you talked about byproducts. I want to think about more byproducts that we have, not just I've been looking at aligned revenue sources, but byproducts. Like I have to think about that. It's a interesting topic.
Yeah, it's so true, because I think a lot of founders get shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, I have this thing working, now let me go do this thing completely different. It's also like, okay, you have these customers that are buying this, you know their problems better than a lot of other people. What is something that is aligned with that to help going up funnel or down funnel or stream? I mean,
yeah. Well, let me ask you this part. So when you do that and you start to create other revenue streams, how do you avoid cannibalizing that client? Because usually first money's first money's hardest money to get. Second is easiest. But how do you keep people from, like, if I'm getting somebody on a podcast, right, and a package or whatever to get on top podcasts, but they also want to grow their Instagram, but then that may take away from getting on more podcasts. Like, how do you balance that, like, in a business?
I actually think it's okay to cannibalize yourself a little bit if you can have the long-term view of, one, what adds the most value to the client and is the best for your kind of P&L. Because we had that issue. GrowthHit, you could say like it's a little bit more premium product. However, clients pay us 5 figures per month. So we launched a productized service as a test called One Day Design. We'll design a page for $13.99, and it worked really well. But then people were like, oh, it's going to do GrowthHit, but I saw you did One Day Design, and I'll just start there. We're like, wow, we just lost $8,000 because we did that. But yeah, we realized it was, one, amazing and learning experience to do a productized service, but two, it just created awareness of us to be even bigger so people could kind of pick and choose what they would want. And it's been a good kind of tripwire to get them to GrowthHit. But I think as long as you're okay with it'll cannibalize a little bit, but you're going to learn from it, it'll help the long-term vision, that's okay. We're even doing another thing that's like called Growth Task, where people can pay us an hourly rate to help with one-off growth tasks, because we get so many leads that we can't help with our traditional retainer. We're like, how can we serve them? And it's going to potentially cannibalize us a little bit, but I think we will learn from it and get better and better. But yeah, it's as long as you can test and learn and iterate, I do think it's okay.
Yeah, great share, man. That's awesome. I'm glad. Thank you for being vulnerable and transparent with us with what you went through in your business, because that's huge to know. I mean, I think we all go through this, and some people don't want to share this stuff. They don't want to share the stuff they're going through and try to figure out, because they're like, man, I don't want people to think of me a certain way or think of our company a certain way. So no, it's we all go through it. That's the key, you know, and we're all trying to figure our way. So let me talk about Neat Apparel. Where did this come from, and what's going on with Neat Apparel?
Yeah, so basically we're like, hey, if we're such a good growth team, why can't we grow our own stuff? And leading up to Neat, we've definitely failed, because we would launch a fake product. We'd launch ads on a website, we'd sell it, and we'd be like, oh, this is awesome. Let's just build the product and then we'll make a real company. So we'd like refund people, make the product. Turns out we're horrible at manufacturing. We're actually horrible at everything that isn't growth marketing and website building and design. So we're like, okay, instead of starting something, let's buy companies, where we can buy companies that are really good where we are weak, and then we can just focus on what we think are our strengths. So we got lucky. We have an existing client, Storelli, that does goalie gloves. They're doing very well, and they have this other product. And what's interesting is they spent 6 figures to buy the intellectual property for this technology. So imagine a shirt that you're wearing right now. If you could flip the inside, imagine if that shirt had little rivers where if you sweat, it spreads it out on the inside, it dries faster, but then it doesn't sweat through on the outside. So this IP was made, intellectual property was made for the military, but then the contract went up. My now partner was smart enough to buy the IP. He launched a brand behind it, but it was during COVID. And guess what? No one cared if they're sweating in public because you're not out. So they're just sitting on this brand, which by the way is making money and has repeat customers. And I'm just like raising my hand. Can we partner with you and be the growth team? Because they had other brands, they were too busy. So we're able to buy majority stake, come in and, really see if we could put it to use. So we're at the phase where we just updated the website to be more conversion friendly, did a new photo shoot. We've launched ads. We're, optimizing the website, launching flows. So it's been really fun, but we'll see. Ask me in 2 years if that was a good use of funds to buy this company to try and grow it, or if I just burnt a bunch of money on fire. But it's really energizing.
Hey, you never know. Yeah. You'd never know unless you tried. I was telling my wife that the other day, I've had some businesses. Look, I've failed a lot. I've had some great successes. I have one mentor friend of mine that failed 40 times, 40 startups. He failed. And then his last one, he sold to Goldman Sachs for multiple billions of dollars. He always says he skipped being a millionaire and went right to a billionaire. But if he would have quit and not tried any of these other things, he would have known. I tell my wife, look, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm in the dirt, beat up, trashed. People hate me. But guess what? I'd rather be the person that has the courage to do this and be in the dirt than not be at all. So, I commend you for taking a shot, and you have an idea here that sounds like it would work to me. It makes sense to me.
We're trying. We'll see. Inventory management is a new beast, but it's fun. And it's also trying to ask yourself where you want to build the muscle to get to that next phase. Cause I think I've been a fairly good operator. And I think that's gotten us to this point, but I think what's holding us back is letting go of the operator mentality and having the investor mentality. And so if we can get more reps, what does a good company look like to buy? How can it work in our terms? We're not sitting on all of this cash flow to deploy. Can you get creative with terms? So that's a muscle we're trying to build, and it's going to come at some cost, at some painful things, I'm sure. But you got to start somewhere.
I love it, man. Well, keep it up. Keep it up. Where's the best place for people to go deeper with you?
Yeah, our website is just growthhit.com, and then neat is neatapparel.com. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter, but they can just email me at jim@growthhit.com. But I'm around. But this has been super fun, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you being here. One last question to wrap up. What's podcasting done for you, whether it's about your own show or being a guest on others? What have you seen the benefit to doing that for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, podcasting, it is a sneaky way to build your network without having to go to conferences and, do awkward introductions, where you can talk to really smart, energizing people in a way where they will be vulnerable and talk to you just because you have a podcast. And so for me, that's been really exciting. And from the business standpoint with GrowthHit, it's not necessarily the lead generation machine that is the big part of it. It's the conversion machine, because people that are really interested in our product, I listened to the podcast. I love how your team thinks. That's why we chose you against somebody else. So it allows people to really kick the tires in a way that you might not be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, just like you talked about that thought leadership, coming from that point of view of being a thought leadership, it ties into that and builds that. So yeah, I love it, man. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.